Well, good day and welcome to this edition of this live event for Model Railroad Academy as we're continuing our series on Craftsman Kits 101. My name is Ron Marsh. I'm your host for today, and I'm glad that you are here with us. Just a few items by way of announcement kind of as we begin today. First of all, as you participate, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments or questions, be sure and use the black chat box right down below the video, not the green box. I won't see that one, but use the black one, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions and comments as you have them. Also, want to remind you again of that great PDF resource, 10 household items that are perfect for scenery. A great way to use some things that you, I'm sure, already have laying around your house on your model railroad, and going to be able to do some really creative and interesting things and save some money at the same time. That is also available down below the video on this page, and I encourage you to check that out. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time and haven't caught the earlier episodes, I want to encourage you to go back and check those out after we're finished here. Today is part 3, as we've been building a small wood Craftsman kit from JL Innovative Designs, a little section house. And in part 1, we looked at all the parts of the kit and kind of prepped them, and we did some staining of them that would enable us to get a nice weathered look as we proceeded. And then in part 2 last week, we painted and did some of that weathering to get a peeling paint effect, both on the wood parts for the walls as well as on the plastic castings for the windows and doorways. And that's got us ready to begin the process of assembly, which is exactly where we're going to be today. So with that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the camera down to the workbench here, and we're going to show you what we have so far, and then we will get started. So here comes the camera down a little bit. I'm also going to zoom in a little here because I know it'll be a lot easier for you to see this in-scale stuff if I zoom in just a little. Okay, here are the parts that we have at this point. With what we have done, and you can see here that we've painted the walls white, and we applied this weathering that gives this peeling paint effect. And I don't have all the windows and doors on here, but all the windows and doors and trim, we're painting this nice green color and have weathered those as well. Today we're going to continue by installing the windows and the glazing in the windows and the doors, and we're also going to do some prep work for assembling the walls, which we'll actually be doing next week. So first of all, I want you to see, you see I've got a couple of windows and doors in there. I've got all the other windows here as well, and you can see there that we've done a little bit of peeling paint, more on some windows than others, but just wanted to get that feel that this is an older structure that maybe hasn't been kept up as well, as it's kind of fallen out of use, or maybe into more of a storage type of use rather than for crew members to use, and kind of get that feel of an older structure. Today, like I said, we're going to install the doors and windows, and the first one that I'm going to install is this door right here, which is a double, like a freight door that goes in this wall section. And this one is a little different from all the others because in this case, this is actually a wood piece, this door, and I'm gluing it to wood, and then we've got this little door post that goes down the middle as kind of a door separator. One thing I want you to notice as I do this, and I think you can tell on camera, this little wall piece here, this little leg that goes down at the corner of this wall, you see with the combination of the weathering that we did with the stains as well as the paint, it is warped and it is kind of bent in just a little bit. We want to be able to fix that and straighten that as we go forward. So what I'm going to do with this door is I'm going to glue it on just two sides, this side and the top, today, and we're going to let that dry. And then later I can come back and apply a little glue to the back of this and pull that out just a little bit and straighten it and clamp it to this door, and that will straighten it out. So that's how we're going to proceed there. So we're just going to begin with that. I'm going to move these over out of the way. We'll bring in this this wall section and our door. And for gluing our wood pieces, I'm just literally using regular old yellow wood glue. This bottle is just a small bottle that I've kept around and refilled for years because it's small and it's handy to have around. I typically use Elmer's wood glue. I have really good luck with it. There are several other brands as well that work really, really well. But for gluing wood to wood, and really in our case today, even our plastic parts, I'm going to glue in with this wood glue. We can use it very, very sparingly. I don't want a lot of it. If it shows up, it does have a tendency to leave kind of a yellow hue to it when it dries. So we don't want a lot of it on the outside where it shows. But it's a really, really good adhesive for what we're doing. And literally what I've done is I've just put a little spot of this wood glue out on a piece of plastic here. I was doing some work before. That's going to get getting a little thick. So we're going to put some fresh glue out there. Just so we make sure we got a nice usable glue. There it comes. And just a dot. We're not going to be using very much on these small parts, but that'll do right there. And to apply the glue, you can use, I've got a toothpick here. A toothpick works really, really well. I think I may have told you last time, but I'll tell you today. One of my favorite applicators to use is a micro brush. If you've got some micro brushes and you've used them, and the head, after a little while gets stiff and they're just not good to use as a brush anymore, you can grab the little head of that and just give this a twist a few times. The head twists right off, and you got this very nice pointed applicator. The beauty of that over the toothpick is, for some glues, the toothpick can actually wick the moisture out of the glue, and it doesn't work as well. You don't have that problem with this. So I really, really like these for glue applicators. So for our door, I'm just going to turn it over here backwards. I'm going to get just a small amount, and I'm going to apply the glue to the wall itself, because in this case, the door just sets on the back of the wall like so. And so I just want to get a little glue on the two sides of the door to get that started, and then we will apply our door and get it in place. Just need the glue right along the edge. And again, I don't need a lot because I don't want a lot of this to squeeze out where it's going to show. Just a bit here. And that should do very well. Again, I'm not going to glue that third side, so we can straighten this piece out a little bit later. And then I'm going to use some tweezers here. And I want to make sure and get this door on. I want to orient it right. The grooves in this door are supposed to run vertically, up and down. So we want to make sure that we've got them running the right direction. And then I also want to make sure that I align it well with the bottom of the wall. We don't want a door that doesn't go all the way down. Put that in place. And there we go. I'm going to turn it over just to make sure it looks okay from the front side. And I think that's aligned really, really well. Now, in this case, my door, actually, that's very, very thin wood that door is made out of. It is 1/32 of an inch wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that aside and put just a little bit of weight on it. I've got a square here, a machinist square that'll be just right to put a little weight on it just to hold that down flat. And I'll just set that aside with the weight on it, and we'll let that dry. That's all we have to do with that piece for today. Now we're going to start applying our window castings. But at the same time, as we're applying the window castings, we're also going to be preparing the window glazing. Turn my camera back up here just a little. We're going to apply the window glazing, which in this case, the kit comes with this piece of acetate. I'm going to move it around so you can see the glare, because otherwise I know it's clear. It's just about invisible. and this is very, very thin, and this works pretty well. In some cases, you'll have some kits that sometimes don't come with window glazing. A good substitute for that you can use and cost you absolutely nothing is the blister packs that many products that we use every day come packaged in. Like batteries, for example, often come packaged in a blister pack, and it's got a nice piece of acetate, nice flat piece. It works great for window glazing as well. And what I like to do is I like to cut my window glazing to a rough size, in this case for the window, and then I install the window frame, and then I come back and adjust the size of the window glazing and install it after I've installed the frame. So I'll show you exactly what I'm doing here. I had a window, and now I've misplaced the window I was going to use. Oh well, we'll use this one. We'll find that one in a minute. And literally, I'm just going to get my window and line it up on my acetate on a corner, and I'm just going to cut a piece of acetate that basically is the size of the full outsized width of the window. That's going to be a little bit too big, but we're going to come back and adjust its size a little later to make it fit perfectly. And this is thin enough that usually just one simple pass with a hobby knife, and that we cut it right out. Again, that is clear and pretty small, so I don't know if you can see that on camera, but that basically fits just the full size of the window. And I'll show you how we adjust those and apply them in a few minutes. Now we want to come in and install the window frames themselves into the wall sections. And again, I'm just going to use wood glue for that. You could also use CA, although CA on porous material like wood dries very, very quickly. It can be pretty unforgiving. You could use canopy glue, and we're going to be using some canopy glue in a little bit for some other things. I just like the wood glue. I think it works well. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and put a nice thin layer right on the inside edge of the windows. Again, I don't want too much because I don't want it squeezing out into places where it's going to show. I'm just going to put a little application all the way around the window opening. Now, some of these Craftsman kits will come with actual laser cut wood window frames, and in a lot of cases those are self-adhesive and stick just to the outside of the wall section itself. Sometimes they stick to the outside of the wall section, but you have to glue them. That just varies from place to place. But in this case, we've got these plastic ones, and we're going to just wood glue them in. Now, again, I'm working in scale here, and everything is very small, but you want to look at these carefully because there is a definite top and bottom, because there is a definite sash on the bottom, and you want to make sure you get them in the right way. And what I do is I just like to grab a mullion with a pair of tweezers and carefully set it into place. And it should just kind of almost snap in there with the trim basically fitting against the outside of the wall. And then the rest of the piece should fit just right into that hole. And there you can see that piece from the front, I think. And from the back, you see, of course, it's kind of recessed because the plastic isn't as thick as the wall section itself, but looks really, really good from the outside. Let's go ahead and do the other one in this wall, and then we'll talk about installing the window glazing. Let's see. I like to do this, apply the glue from the back, because it seems like I have I'm less apt to get glue on the outside of the wall that way. This way, if I get any excess glue somewhere, it's going to be on the inside where it's not going to show. In this case, I do not plan to detail the interior of the structure. I don't plan to light it, so I'm not really worried about what the inside looks like. Now, if you were going to detail and light the interior, you'd want to take a little more care about how the inside looks. But in this case, I'm just going to worry about the outside. All right. Again, I want to make sure I get my window oriented the correct way, top up, bottom down, and set it right back into place. make sure that it's nice and square and plumb inside the window opening. Because sometimes if there's a little excess room, it can actually be a little bit twisted, and once that glue dries, it is not gonna look right. So there we go. That's the installation of the windows is as easy as that. Now I want to let that glue dry before I worry about installing the window glazing. It doesn't have to completely cure, but you probably want to let it dry for 30 minutes or so. In my case, I've got another wall section right here where I installed the window frames a little bit earlier, as well as one of the door frames. And we'll show you the installation of a door frame in a little bit too. And we're going to go ahead and put the door and the window glazing in this wall. And to do that, I'm going to turn it over to the back. And got here we go. This is the piece of window glazing that I cut earlier for one of these windows. And you see it's just a little too tall and it's just a little too wide. But I'm going to come in with my nice sharp hobby knife, and I'm just going to trim a little bit at a time off of the sides. And you can just do this flat on a cutting mat and shear it off until I get it to size. The beauty of these kits are I've cut all of the window glazing out, and you see I've got almost a whole piece of acetate left. So if I mess up a piece, I can always cut another one. But I just find it's easier if I cut these. You see, height-wise, we're just right there. It fits inside of the hole in the wood, but still covers all of the window frame. I just find it's easier to cut them to rough shape and then just adjust them a little bit than it is to try to get exactly the right dimensions after the window has been installed. This way, I can just hold it right up against the window as I showed you before to get it started. And yeah, that piece just flipped right out of my tweezers, and I don't know where it went. So let's grab another one here. That's always something you want to watch with little pieces whenever you're dealing with holding them with tweezers or whatever. They certainly can do that. We'll try this one more time. All right. Trim a little off the top of this. There, when my window frame came out. I glued those in just about 20 minutes or so ago, so the glue's not completely set on them either. Trim the side of this a little. Just a little cut and fit, a little trial and error until we get it just right. Okay, there we go. That's just right. I'm going to leave that on my wood there so I can see it. Now, when it comes to installing this window glazing into your windows, you have to be careful about what you use for adhesive, the kind of glue that you use. Some people use CA or super glue for a lot of their model building, and that's fine. This is not a case when you want to use the CA, though, because that CA, the super glue, will cause your window to frost, and so it won't be clear. It'll be a frosted window, which is not what you're looking for. The similar problem if you use like a solvent cement that you would use on other plastics will also cause damage to your window glazing and will cause it to frost up. What I like to use when I'm installing windows is canopy glue. This was actually developed for RC model flyers. It's called canopy glue because it's what they use for gluing the fabric on the outside of the wood frame of an airplane. It is a white glue, not altogether different from the white glues that we're familiar with, but a little different formula. This particular canopy glue is what they call Formula 560, which is what I consider to be ideal. And you can get it in a variety of brands, but this glue it comes out somewhat thin, but when it dries completely clear, and it dries just a little bit flexible, almost a little bit tacky, so you don't get a real rigid or brittle kind of a glue joint. And this works perfect for, as far as I'm concerned, for windows because it dries clear. Now again, I've got my little glue palette here. I had a little of this out there earlier, but I'm going to put another dot of fresh glue on there. And you saw that come out of the bottle. Again, fairly thin. And again, I'm going to get a clean applicator. And I want to get just a few dots of this on the back of the window frame itself. And I prefer to get it along the edges, some on the mullions, but it's mostly going to tend to kind of squeeze out. And even though it dries clear, I try not to have a lot of excess glue on the glazing itself. But just a few tiny dots. Now, if you're working in HO or O scale, this is not such a fine, tedious little process, a little bit easier. But in N scale, everything's very small here. So, okay, that's got us a little glue applied. And now I can pick up my window glazing and just set it into place, and use the end of my tweezers to kind of push it down. Make sure that it gets in good contact with the glue down there. And in this case, you can look, I don't know if you can see on camera or not, but a little bit of that glue did kind of squeeze out just a tiny, tiny bit along the edges of the mullions. But once that dries, it's going to dry completely clear, and you're never going to see it. So that's how we're going to proceed with all of the windows, cutting and installing the window glazing. Now, this wall also has a door, and so we're going to install that as well, and that's going to go on the inside. Now, I installed this door frame previously. It goes in exactly the same way as I showed you with the windows. The thing on this particular kit with the doors is they tended to fit almost just a little bit loose. So I applied a little extra glue on the inside just to kind of help fill that gap and make sure that they were in, and glued in and fit in really, really well. Now, this particular door does have a window in it, and I went ahead and installed the glazing in it exactly as I just showed you before we came on camera. And as I grab it here, you'll see that it is made to fit just inside of that door frame. And I'm going to glue it in with a canopy glue as well, just because I've got it here, and I think it'll be a good way. It'll hold it in place well. Now, again, this, I want to make sure I get it right on. There's just a little bit of a lip around that door frame that this door kind of fits into. So I want to make sure to get this glue right kind of on that lip. 3 sides. I guess I'll put a little on the bottom there. I don't know if it'll touch that or not. Now, with the door frames, I will mention this. Just like I said with the window frames, when you go to install the door frames, look carefully at the frame because they have an orientation too. The threshold sticks out a little bit from the frame and is a little bit wider than the frame and definitely needs to go on the bottom. So make sure you get those in the right way, or it's just not going to look right if you got the threshold on the top of the door. All right, now we're just going to set our door into place here. I'm going to kind of push it right down into the door frame. And when you've got it positioned right, it should fit in there just perfectly. There we go. That's got the door in place there. It just fits right into the frame. And we'll turn around to the front, and I don't even see any glue coming out there, but we got a nice door installed right there. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to take a look at our chat and see if we have any questions here that we can answer before we go any further. Let's see. I'm probably doing these kind of backwards, but Brett says, "Why wouldn't you brace the kit beforehand to prevent the piece from warping?" And that's a good question, Brett. In this particular case, where is that little piece that I was dealing with? Oh, it's no. Oh, I've got it under the weight. In this particular case, um, there's some bracing that has to be installed in these corners as we assemble it, and so I didn't really see any way to put a brace on that particular piece. The same with this one. Now these fortunately stayed straight. But we can straighten those out easily the way that we're going to do this. My intention all along had been to use the inside bracing that we'll be applying to straighten out any warping that we had. In some cases, especially with kits that are a little bit larger, you can certainly do that. Do some inside bracing across the grain and across the texture to help keep them straight before you do. Um, Let's go on to our next question here. Uh, Kevin says, "Hi, Ron. Can you recommend any sources of very detailed extra parts to add to kits or scenery?" Great series, by the way. Well, there are a number of manufacturers out there that make a lot of detailed parts. One that comes to my mind off the top of my head is Tichy Train Group, which makes a lot of detail parts, especially for structures, window frames and doors, things like that. I really like Tichy again as an N scaler because they make a lot of N scale stuff. But there are a number of manufacturers out there, and honestly, if you Google exactly the part that you're looking for, you'll find a lot of them available online, or at least where you can find where to get them online. Um, so I'd recommend you try that. But there are lots of companies of detail parts out there, and today, honestly, there are tons of new small manufacturers of detail parts, both for structures and locomotives and rolling stock. There are new small companies coming online all the time. And so I recommend you keep checking, keep looking, keep asking in like those Facebook groups or forums that you're a part of. People will turn you on to the sources of details that they're using. Um, Here's someone who has asked about ash pit kits, or other sources. Um, that's a good question. That's not. I personally don't model in the steam era, so I've never really looked for a kit for an ash pit. Now I do have a casting in N scale that is for a maintenance pit, and so I'm sure that is out there. I wish I had an answer for you for that. I don't off the top of my head, but considering how much is available in for steam era modeling, I would assume there would be something out there. I would think an ash pit might not be too hard to scratch build too. You should be able to get some good photographs online to let you see exactly what you would need to include in that. I would think that would be not too hard to scratch build. And then one more question here about how to build freight items such as crates, pallets, and carts in O gauge. Um, Again, I'm not an O scaler, so I'm not real current on a lot of what's out there commercially in O scale. Things like pallets are pretty easy to build, really in any scale, because it's just a matter of getting some scale lumber, which is available from Northwest Shortline and lots of other manufacturers as well. And measuring your pallets. Usually, your pallets are tend to be 4 feet by 4 feet, and cutting those and making some base pieces and gluing the strips across those. A pallet would be really easy to scratch build. Carts, on the other hand, obviously a lot more detailed kind of a build, but the crate would be pretty easy to build too. In that you could get the lumber flat pieces similar to these we're using for our wall sections here that are already cut with the detail on the outside, so you wouldn't have to put them together piece by piece. You could cut a whole side of a crate using this textured wood, and and create them that way. I hope that helps a little bit. Um, and let's see, it's like one more. What is the name of this kit again? Sure, I'll be glad to share that information with you there, Chase. And here it is right here. This is the JL Innovative Design, and this is their East Junction section house in scale. And JL Innovative makes some great wood kits. This is an in scale kit, but they also make them in HO. This is one of their smaller kits that we were doing for the sake of this little project for this series. But they make a whole variety of things. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know they make a gas station that's really, really interesting, and just a whole variety of wood Craftsman kits. This particular one is the East Junction section house from JL Innovative Design. Okay, one more part that I want to accomplish today before we wrap up, and that is I want to prepare these parts for assembly, the wall sections, which means that we need to cut and install our interior braces. And we're going to do that. We've been supplied with some lumber in the kit. This is a 1/8 inch square brace, this is making for the interior bracing. And then we also have I'm trying to remember what size this is. I believe this is 3/32 square lumber. And this will be the outside trim pieces. So on all these wall sections, you'll have a piece of this like so that will be the trim, but a piece of this behind that will actually glue the two wall sections together. So these pieces I'm going to be cutting and painting and weathering just like we did the walls. I'll actually be weathering them using the same technique we did with the walls last week, but we'll be painting them that green color because these are trim pieces. The interior pieces, I'm not going to obviously worry about painting them or weathering them. They won't be seen. I'm going to be using a Chop-It today. This is a Micro Mark Chop-It, Northwest Shortline. Many of you are familiar. First made a product like this and still does. Both are really, really good. But these are great for cutting multiple pieces that are exactly the same length. And in this case, I need to cut some of these interior braces, and I need 4 of these that are 3/4 of an inch long. Now, I've done a couple of things in advance, but I want to show you. First, these actually, you want to make sure and calibrate that your blade on these are square every time, because this actually can shift. At least on these Micro Mark ones, I know they can shift. So you want to bring your square in and put it along your fence here, and make sure that your blade is very, very square. Now, you can't see it here. I squared it on the other side before I installed this little gauge earlier, but just to make sure it was good and square. And then with my blade down, I've got my stop in here, and I have measured that, and that is exactly 3/4 of an inch. And so I'm ready to cut some of these, and I need, what did I say? I need 4 of those. Now, one thing you want to be careful with some of these, as you are cutting wood that's a little bit thicker, it can tend to twist a little bit, and you get not as straight a cut as you want. And also it can move and throw off your gauge. So you want to cut that very carefully. And what I like to do is press down through it on thicker wood a couple of times, and then lift it up and then press down again, just to make sure that not throwing things out of alignment. Okay, there's 2. I need 4 of these. 3. And 1 more. Makes 4. And then I also need 2 of these that are 1/2 inch long. So I'll bring my square back in here. I'm going to loosen this up, and I'm going to adjust my stop down to 1/2 inch. There it is right there. And tighten that up, double check it. Yep, 1/2 inch. That's just right. And I need 2 of those. There's 1. And 2. Okay, and that's going to be our interior bracing. And we're going to go ahead and install that on some wall sections right now. And according to the instructions, the way to do this is to start with our long walls for our main building. Again, this building has kind of a main structure, and then it's got a small a piece that juts off of one end, and it's got kind of a lean-to on the back. So actually 3 kind of components to this structure. And these 3/4 inch ones we're going to install on the back of these. And so we'll just do that today and let you see that exactly. And again, we're going to come in here with our wood glue, and what we're going to do is we're going to install these kind of centered up and down and flush with the outside edge of the wall section. And show you exactly how we do that in a minute. Now in this case, we're gluing these just almost along these windows, but we're going to glue them in there where they don't show. We've got a little bit of our wood glue, and I think I need a fresh dose of wood glue. That wood glue, as it sits out there, gets thick over time, and you don't want to use it once it started to get thick. You want it fresh. So there's a fresh bit of wood glue. There we go. Now, just a little bit on there. And then one thing I like to do whenever I'm doing wood glue with a piece like this, a larger piece, so I like to set it in there and then pull it out. Make sure I got good contact all along the edge. Then we'll put it back in place. And then to make sure that I've got that good and flush, I come in with, this is a machinist tool called a 321 block. I just wipe a little excess glue off of the surface there. I'm going to push that up against that block and push my brace piece up against it as well, so I know everything is perfectly flush. Press down a little bit there, and just like so. And we're going to do the same over here on the other side. Again, I'm going to spread that out. I want to make sure we get good glue contact over the entire piece. Come in with our brace. Press it down. Make sure I get good contact. Looks good. Center it there. Wipe off a little excess glue. And then make sure we got it flush. Because if these aren't flush with the outsides, it's going to throw off our assembly when we go to assemble our wall pieces. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with this. This is the rear wall. Next week when we come together, we'll actually begin assembling these wall sections, and that's when the whole kit really begins to come together. As you begin to see it look like a structure rather than just a lot of pieces laying on a table. All right. There we go. Wipe off the excess, flush it up, and there we have the interior bracing on those. And then the short ones that we cut, we're going to apply them on the little piece that 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 comes off of the end of that structure, uh, and just on one end. One of those is the one that I've got under the weight that we applied the door to earlier, so we'll actually apply those a little bit later, but before we come back next time. I'm going to look one more time just to see if we have any more questions here. And it doesn't look like we do. So that's kind of where we are today. And of course, I'll finish installing the windows exactly as I have shown you here before we come back together next week, and then we will assemble the walls and begin to see what this thing really looks like next week. So let me go ahead and turn my camera back up here and zoom out a little because that is really close up. And I want to thank you for joining us today for this third installment of Craftsman Kit Building 101. And I hope that you've seen some things here that might be helpful to you. I want to encourage you, if you've never built a wood Craftsman kit, they are a lot of fun. They take a little time and a little patience, but very rewarding because they make some really, really nice structures on your layout. Whether you are modeling in the late 19th, early 20th century, and these would have been new structures, or whether you're modeling whether you're modeling modern day, and these would be old, rundown, even falling apart structures, they can still be great additions to your layout. So I hope that you'll give some of these techniques a try. Well, I hope that you all are staying well and staying safe, and we certainly hope that you will continue to do so. And I hope that you all have a great weekend and do some model railroading this weekend. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week as we come back together for part 4.